Identifying the problem. Traceability literature has evolved rapidly in the last decade. However, investigations from a translation perspective are still scarce. Also, much of the literature is outdated, as several standards have been released in recent years, such as ISO 9001, ITF 16969, ISO 8079-34. A standard definition for Industry 4.0 is still unclear. There's firms that try to make their own definition of Industry 4.0 adapt to their needs. This research analyzes the existing literature as it pertains to past and current trends, identifying existing gaps, developing a framework and a model to support practitioners and researchers during the decision-making process for the product's traceability grading scale definition. How can you digitalize your production and supply chain network? Which physiological units are relevant in the field of traceability and Industry 4.0? How can you increase your efficiency by using smart devices, and what measures should you take against cyber attacks? Review and analyze the past literature of Industry 4.0 and traceability is one of the goals of this research. Propose a framework for decision making by the integration of the traceability within firms, taking into account the identified physiological units. Collect evidences of English-German collocations, elaborating a representative database through a content review of the literature based especially on the ZVEI traceability guideline. This research aims to make new contributions to the current literature in order to help academics and practitioners address traceability decisions in an efficient, effective, and structured manner. This research is oriented in the research model according to Pfeffer et al., which is split in 6 steps. The first step, identifying the problem and motivate. The second step, defining the objectives of a solution. The third objective, the design and development. The fourth step, demonstration. The fifth step, evaluation. And the sixth and last one is communication. This thesis or this research result, this article is part of the thesis, and the structure of the thesis is split in mainly 3 parts. The first one is the introduction, the second one are the chapters and research works, and the last one is the conclusion and implications. The thesis has a cumulative character, which means it's elaborated by a number of articles which are independently published and written. So these articles are coming together as a part of the thesis. Which is the methodology of this research? A literature review in the ProQuest database, the ZVEI report, and the Google Scholar Academics database was performed. The case study focused on a leading manufacturer of electronic products certified on ATEX, ICX standards, and so on. The firm is a global player based in Germany with around 1,669 employees and 275 million turnover from last year. The firm was chosen mainly because of its need to improve the traceability process aligned to the Industry 4.0 trends, which is getting much more attention in the last years. This research follows the method of Miles and Hubersman methodology consisting in data reduction, which is qualitative data was collected through a set of interviews at the firm, and also by analyzing existing documents and the literature available. Data display. The analysis of mass data was displayed in the form of tables, charts, and other graphical formats. 3. Conclusion. The analysis review was the basis to draw general conclusions, verify and validate the study. Artifact. List of object classes identified from the set VEI, which is mainly 3 columns, German, English, and subcategories. Subcategories, why? Because these collocations identified are defined within the category of traceability, non-traceability, and subcategories are defined, which are mainly non-trace information, non-identification, non-declaration of origin, non-other, and so on. For instance, Anzahl batches, batch counter, non-trace information. Bauteilbeschreibung, part description in English, non-trace information, which is mainly of the list of parts here are coming together with the verb input and ungiven in German. For instance, Bestellcode angeben, Bestellnummer angeben, Feuchtigkeitsklasse angeben, purchase order, insert purchase order number, Herstellungsstandort angeben, insert or set manufacturing location, Kundenteilnummer angeben, insert customer part number, Lieferantendaten angeben, insert supplier date, Liefermenge angeben, insert delivery quantity, and so on. Now, what is interesting is we analyze the last revisions of the ISO 9001 and ISO 80079-34, and we analyze which are the requirements concerning traceability in those standards which are internationally implemented. And for that reason, they have a really high relevance in the industry. Now, what is in the chapter 853 is where you can find requirements about traceability. And from the last revision, the standards are created in a high-level structure. What does mean? The family of standards are coming together and put in the same structure of 10 points, 10 chapters. Thus, all these standards reviewed by the last revision have the same high-level structure of 10 chapters. Thus, every standard which has additional requirements, add those requirements on top to the ISO 9001, which is the basis, the mother of all the standards. So for that reason, what will we find in at the norms, at these standards? This is interesting. For instance, geeignete Mittel anwenden, use suitable means, Ergebnisse von Prozessen kennzeichnen, to identify outputs, die Konformität von Produkten und Dienstleistungen sicherstellen, ensure the conformity of products and services, der Status der Ergebnisse kennzeichnen, to identify the status of outputs, die eindeutige Kennzeichnung der Ergebnisse steuern, control the unique identification of the outputs, die dokumentierten Informationen aufbewahren, retain the documented information, eine Rückverfolgbarkeit ermöglichen, to enable traceability. Eine Rückverfolgbarkeit ist für das Endprodukt und dessen wichtige Teile erforderlich. Traceability is required with respect to the final product and its significant parts. Rückverfolgbarkeit kann mittels einer Seriennummer erreicht werden. Traceability can be achieved using serial numbers. Verfahren für die Identifizierung des Produkts sind festzulegen und aufrechtzuerhalten. Procedures should be established and maintained for product identification. Wichtige Teile sind beispielsweise eine Leiterplatte und Sicherheitsbauteile eines einzigen Schaltkreises. Significant parts are, for example, a printed circuit board and safety components of an intrinsically safe circuit. As you can observe, firstly, we saw listed the requirements concerning the ISO 9001 and the ISO 807934 has the requirements from the ISO 9001 plus additional ones which are listed in this chart. Classification of products traceability grading scale. So in this case, we have defined 4 different levels to classify products traceability, where you can see products with level 1 are the products with the lowest requirements on traceability, and products with traceability level 4 or are the products with the highest requirements on traceability. For instance, a PCB, printed circuit board, will be set in level 3, whereas a PCB will be set in level 3, a PCBA will be set in level 4. PCBA is a printed circuit board assembly, and has much more requirements. And that means the list of information which are here will be mandatory, or will be for the level 4 in that case. Now, in order to help practitioners and academics to solve traceability decisions process, we develop a framework based in 6 main clusters, which is integrated in a pairwise comparison and a decision matrix in order to implement theory into the practice. So, as it can be seen, 6 main clusters are defined and integrated in this pairwise comparison, which are strategic value, performance, product supply chain risk, resource position, compliance, and extent material data, process data. As it can be also observed, every main cluster has subcategories, and for instance, resource position has 5 main subcategories like process maturity, technological capability, support systems, technology and manufacturing processes, assets available, and so on. After performing the pairwise comparison, is obtained that compliance is the most important factor, and it has a weight factor of 10 against 10, and ahead by resource position, performance, strategic value with 8, product supply chain risk with 7, and extend material data with 6. After integrating those clusters into the pairwise comparison and performing the pairwise comparison, the values of the data results are also integrated in the decision matrix so that practitioners and decision makers can assess those approaches, and it can be seen from here that in that specific case study, it's possible to see the main clusters on the column, and in the vertical one, the options grade of traceability, where these 4 levels of traceability which are defined, and the question is which level of the traceability is the most appropriate for that particular product which we want to assess in that case, and we want to decide to make it traceable, and in which way, how deep should be traceable. And using these decision metrics, practitioners and academics can choose which level of traceability best fit for that particular product or service to be assessed. In that case, with 84% level 4, it was highlight that for that particular product, the level 4 category is the one with best fit for that product, ahead by the level 2, level 3, and level 1 category. So we are coming to the conclusion. Our findings have highlighted the importance of resolving traceability decisions in a structured manner. The research represents a useful resource for translator training since it offers the wider context of expressions in traceability language. The research presents relevant dimensions and factors to be studied and evaluates possible outcomes when approaching traceability decisions. This study contributes to enrich the literature related to phraseological units, developing a list of German English expressions related to the traceability field. I'm coming to the end of the presentation, and I thank you very much for your attention. Please, if you have any question, don't hesitate to contact me through the committee. Have a nice conference.